Many of us are troubled by the opioid crisis facing our nation. It has now reached epidemic proportions. What is the government doing to stem the flow of fentanyl death overdoses? How are our doctors, first responders, and people who help addicts on our streets coping? I'm Lorna Duick, and you're watching Context.
It was my life. It was my boyfriend. It was my family. It was the thing that was always there for me.
Anyone who says this is not an epidemic is wrong. There are more now than 100,000 tombstones to suggest otherwise.
It's said to be more intense than heroin, and I never knew that when I was doing it.
I really started understanding that I was completely selfish. Drug use is selfish. It's a personal thing, and you do it to yourself, and it hurts everybody else.
Well, addiction certainly does hurt the people who are around the opioid abuser or addict. Coming up, my interview with the federal health minister, Jane Philpott, along with a mother struggling with her daughter's addiction. Our Sheldon Neal speaks with a street pastor in Toronto and in Vancouver. Well, this week, the Ontario government announced it would follow Vancouver's lead and bring supervised drug injection sites to Toronto and Ottawa to better equip the public fight against the dangerous drug fentanyl. And expect more supervised drug consumption services from your tax dollar. Or should it be drug companies paying for that? Should we be suing the drug companies? Is that a job that both provincial and federal governments should be doing? There's been over 3,000 deaths on illicit drugs in a year in Canada just last year, and now more tax-funded locations on where to inject illegal drugs while healthcare workers watch. It's complicated. I sat down with Canada's National Health Minister, Jane Philpott, for answers.
Well, when I look back on 2016 and I think about the big issues that I had to face as Canada's health minister, I think one of the very top issues is this opioid crisis that we're facing in the country and the skyrocketing numbers of accidental opioid overdose deaths. It looks like, we haven't got the final numbers in, but it looks like over 2016 that there will be upwards toward 3,000 young Canadians that will have died of an opioid overdose. We've never seen numbers like that before. The reality is, in places like British Columbia and Vancouver in particular, that there are sometimes 4 or more people in a day dying from an opioid overdose.
What is at the root of why we have so many unwell people, especially young people, with this crisis?
Well, it's a complex problem, and it actually has multiple roots. I think the deepest roots are unresolved pain and trauma in people's lives. Much of this has its roots in addiction, and it's been said by many that at the roots of addiction is pain, is hurt. Sometimes that's physical pain that has gotten people on a path to having to use opioids for their physical pain, and unfortunately some people are susceptible to become addicted to those opioids. But many times it's psychological pain, it's issues that have happened in people's childhood or their past that has caused them to seek out a way of dealing with that pain, and sometimes that happens through drugs. And these are very powerful chemicals that really take over people's lives.
So using drugs to manage pain, whether it's an emotional or it's a physical pain, you've challenged us to see this as a disorder, not as a moral problem. Why?
This is really important that we look at the opioid crisis as a public health crisis. I often say, addiction is not a crime. Addiction is not a moral failing. Addiction can happen to people from all walks of life, and it's a health issue. It's a chronic illness. and it needs to be treated as such, and that's how we will help people to be able to recover from addiction when we see this as a health issue, when we help to understand the roots of the addiction in people's lives, and when we help to bring them in a non-judgmental, non-stigmatizing way into care and treatment, when we help to prevent deaths through mechanisms like harm reduction, and we can hope to turn this crisis around.
I think many Canadians appreciate your background as a family physician and as a follower of Christ, that you brought that into the portfolio. How do those two things shape the way you look at this incredibly tragic crisis?
Well, as we look at any of these crises, of course, our underlying values and principles shape how we look at this. And certainly, as a family doctor, I took care of people who were facing mental illness and addiction, and that had a big impact on my perspective. I certainly know through my faith perspective that every human is a human. Some of those people in this life have gotten a pretty raw deal. And some people, for circumstances completely beyond their control, have found themselves facing mental illness, facing addiction. They need to be treated with compassion. We need to all work together to make sure that we respond to the roots of this crisis, that we save people's lives, that we find a way for people to be able to have the hope and healing that it takes to be able to stay alive, to see a better future for themselves and their communities.
Well, we're going to continue that conversation with Canada's Health Minister, but here now is Carol Victor, a mother facing the challenges the Health Minister talked about of having a child with an opioid addiction. Carol, thanks for coming tonight. Your daughter started at just 15 having trouble. Tell us what began, what happened.
Jennifer was a very active child. She was involved in all kinds of sports. She was in competitive skating and a ballet dancer. She was very outgoing. And suddenly she started to withdraw from these activities, and she developed anorexia. And this was very, very scary for us at the time. We didn't realize what was happening to her. And she started to get a lot of pain in her back. And as a result, she went to the family doctor and was given a prescription to help her with the pain.
Did you know that?
We knew she was getting a prescription, but we didn't know what it was. We didn't know exactly what the name of it was.
Do you know now?
I certainly do. It's OxyContin. And she obviously got great benefits from it, and as a result, she went from clinic to get more, and she became addicted to it.
And how does that, a doctor's prescription, race down to heroin?
Well, my ex-husband and I had parted ways, and he'd moved to the United States, and my daughter decided to go with him. And once she got to the United States, of course, there is no health plan there, or there wasn't at the time, and there was no clinic to go to. So she met up with some like-minded folks, which people in this condition usually do, and she developed an addiction to heroin.
You've been a deep woman of faith, asking God to heal your daughter since day one, and
Yes.
she's now 34.
Yes.
How has this affected you, your conversations with God about your daughter?
To be very honest, it's cast some doubts on my faith in many instances. And then there will be some kind of breakthrough, and it will be something that just couldn't have happened for no reason whatsoever. And then I start to feel that perhaps there is a chance that she will get better.
Carol, we have a tweet now from a viewer listening to you at Agatha, who saw your story actually on our Facebook page, wants to know this. Do you think divorce was an early factor in the beginnings of her addiction?
Absolutely, absolutely.
How so?
She's an only child, so she doesn't have the siblings to draw strength from. I think that she found it very difficult to have both of her parents at odds with each other. I think the fact that one moved to the United States and one stayed here has also played a role in this. But definitely the divorce has played a role.
All factors always affecting a person's well-being. Carol Victor, thank you very much, and I will pray with you for your daughter's recovery.
Thank you.
And coming up, more with Canada's Federal Minister of Health, Jane Philpott, and Marianne Connor, a former opioid abuser who's now in the heart of Vancouver, where she gives life to helping other addicts.
Dreams do come true. PureFlix Canada is now available on a device near you. With over 3,500 faith and family titles, there is something for everyone. Start your free 1-month trial today at pureflixcanada.com.
What will a Trump presidency mean for Canada? Is media playing fair? Is fake media changing our minds? Join us next week.
Well, why is there an overprescription of addictive painkillers? What are the public health consequences? That's the specialty of Dr. Anna Lembke. She is the author of Drug Dealer MD, Chief of Addiction Medicine at Stanford School of Medicine. And thank you, Dr. Lembke, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, pain is dangerous, we've heard. Just tell us how difficult it is, the line doctors are trying to walk between pain management and the power of those pills that are going out again and again.
Over the last 30 years or so in the United States, doctors have begun prescribing opioids more and more liberally for chronic pain conditions and even for minor pain conditions, whereas in the past they would have been much more cautious for fear that their patients would get addicted.
Okay.
But there was a chance.
Okay, but can you ask me this also, because it's been more than just pain, it's also emotional issues that there's been a prescribing rush over, right?
You're absolutely right. In the field of mental health, doctors are much more liberal with stimulant prescriptions, with sedative prescriptions for anxiety. So you're absolutely right. There's been an increase in prescribing of all kinds of psychotropic medications and pain medications in the last 30 years.
But is there now a cultural expectation? These millennials that began 2000 beyond, they've grown up knowing pharmaceuticals, a chemical response can make my life better?
Yeah, this is one of the tragedies, the great tragedies that I see in the last several decades, is that we've got a whole generation of young people who now really firmly believe in better living through chemistry, who feel like there should be a pill to cure almost every ill they have. And even experiences like boredom have almost become intolerable to the average young person or even older person today. We have this kind of quick satisfaction, quick fix oriented type of culture. People are chronically being stimulated and overstimulated in all kinds of ways. And we've sort of forgotten as a society how to sit and tolerate the experience of discomfort, pain, emotional and physical distress.
Do you really think that's one of the root causes of the opioid addiction? We've seen more than 3,000 young adults die in our country in the last year. Really? We don't have a culture that any longer can tolerate pain?
I do think that is one of the root causes. I mean, the opioid epidemic is multifactorial. You've got the pharmaceutical industry pushing the pills. You've got health systems delivery issues that promote prescribing pills over whole patient health. But I think on the consumer side, you do have patients who go in and really have very inflated expectations about what doctors should be able to do for them. They really do believe that all of their pain should be eliminated. And I think culturally there is this loss of an ability to tolerate pain, to value pain. We no longer see suffering and pain as having any value in our society. You know, for centuries in religious traditions, pain had value. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. After darkness comes the dawn. That's really been lost in today's culture. We now feel like pain is dangerous.
Is the doctor the smoking gun? He's rolling over or she's rolling over and saying, yeah, sure, here's the meds.
Oh, absolutely doctors are culpable, and they're not just rolling over, they're volunteering these drugs to kind of erase the suffering or the distress that their patients are experiencing. And there are lots of reasons for that. I think most doctors who overprescribe these medications are actually compassionate and well-intended individuals, but there's tremendous pressure on them from insurance companies, from hospital administrators to get patients in and get them out and have them be satisfied with their care. I also think that we've really lost the doctor-patient relationship, and in a way, these pills have become proxy for a meaningful relationship.
Okay, so what is your advice then if you're stuck in that?
From the doctor end of things, to educate doctors about the risks of these medications and incentivize them to provide non-medication alternatives to help their patients. And on the cultural patient side, is we've got to give our patients more tools to tolerate their pain and suffering.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Lemke, author of Drug Dealer MD. Stay with us.
What will a Trump presidency mean for Canada? Is media playing fair? Is fake media changing our minds? Join us next week.
How does a relationship with Christ, knowing who God is, factor into perhaps being that tool, that missing tool that could help to really bring healing to many suffering with opioid addiction?
Right, yeah, so like the spiritual dimension is just huge, and really I think at the bottom of all our issues, is the spiritual dimension. It's just, the Bible says there's not one that's righteous, and so we need Christ to really, come to the world and make us new.
Well, across Canada's storefront street missions engage Canada's drug crisis every day. They do see miracles and hope, but experts in the field say the nation needs about 5,000 more of these street-level ministries like Andrew, like you just explained to us. So helping us discuss this, we have Amin Habib Ali. You are a prison chaplain working in Toronto, and Andrew Hubbard, who we just heard from in Toronto streets, and David Kaufman, you are with the Jewish Addiction Health Center.
Community Services.
Of Community Services. Okay, so we've got all our faith groups are struggling with opioid addiction. Imam, tell us how you're seeing it in the Muslim community.
Like everyone else in the community, the Muslims themselves are faced with this opioid crisis. And working in corrections with inmates over the years, many people have come to me suffering from this addiction. A few things we have taken over the years to address it, even not only within corrections, but on the streets and in the community setting, is we do not judge people. We are there as chaplains and as pastoral carers to listen to their story and to empathize with them and to find solutions along with them.
And what is the solution in the Muslim faith for opioid addiction, for any addiction?
We do a program which is similar to Overcomers, which is a Christian-based principled addiction overcomers program. We call it Rise Above. And basically, we have taken verses from the Quran and sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, where he himself faced similar situations in Arabia 1,400 years ago where people were addicted to alcohol. And instead of making it a one-for-all prohibition, he allowed a gradual prohibition of alcohol over a period of time. So we work with these individuals case by case, listening to their stories, allowing them to express themselves. Maybe they fall, maybe they get up. But in the end, they find solutions themselves that they own and take responsibility of. And we have seen amazing changes.
David Kaufman at the Jewish Health Addiction Services. What's happening in your community on this issue of opioids?
So, yeah, it's interesting when they originally asked the question, my first thought was opioids are one problem. And then there's gambling, and then there's pornography addiction, and there's alcoholism. So there's a lot of different issues. The drug of choice that a person chooses is not as important as the solution, how to get out of that.
Both of you have explained what I am just passionate about, and that is we have got to put people into spiritual conversations or they will never unpack their pain. Andrew Hubbard, is spiritual conversations, just flat out any kind of conversation, FaceTime, critical in your healing work?
Yeah, definitely. It's totally essential. And spiritual conversations, spiritual FaceTime is very essential. I mean, without the actual person-to-person, talking.
Like, it just seems like every family is touched by some kind of Pain management addiction.
All right, so part of the plan of action is actually heal the family. We talk about addiction being a family disease. Obviously, at one level, that means that genetically there's a genetic load and there's a possibility that it could be others. But even if it's not, the family's been damaged by living with an addict. Addicts are manipulative. The symptoms of addiction are lying, cheating, stealing, manipulating. It destroys the house. And so part of the process, even if you can't heal the addict, is to heal the family.
Wow. All right. Well, there's no doubt there's an incredible amount of collateral damage. Andrew Hubbard, Imam Halal, David Coffin, thank you all very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, the hardest hit region of the opioid epidemic is in Vancouver's Lower East Side, a part of the country that is struggling with upwards of over 700 overdose deaths just in 2016. One of the people on the front lines is Marianne Connor. Welcome, Marianne. It's great to have you on our program.
It's a pleasure to be here, Lorna.
You are one of the lucky ones who broke opioid addiction. Tell us how.
If you're referring to my personal experience in the mid-'80s with Furanol, which was a half grain of codeine.
Yep. Tell us, how did you break that? Because it had a grip on you, right?
Well, back in the day, doctors were readily prescribing an opioid, a drug like Furanol. And from my perspective, I was trying to get rid of chronic pain due from migraines. I've been suffering from migraines from the age of 10. So I was prescribed Furanol. I was taking like 10 a day. So imagine, over a month, over a number of years, what that does to a person. And I had no idea I was addicted, to be quite honest with you.
How did you break free?
I think God just grabbed a hold of me and put me in front of a doctor who asked the question. And the question was, what are you taking and how many of these are you taking a day? And, this doctor was a pain management physician in Vancouver, and she grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and threw me into hospital for 3 weeks. So I went through a 3-week detox, literally happened within a 24-hour period that I was admitted. And I got free. It's a miracle because I easily could have ended up on the street, Lorna.
So how can we help shelter givers like your work?
Well, I've been saying for months now, since this crisis hit Vancouver, that there's a lot being discussed. There's a lot being done over the last couple months to help, stem this crisis. But what we're not having is conversation. I believe that all 3 levels of government, the faith community in particular, the social providers, the medical community, policing, educators, should all get around the same table at the same time at where decisions are being made, that the high-level policy-making decisions. And currently, Lorna, that's not happening. So decisions are made without even looking at the spiritual aspects of what we're doing on the streets of Surrey and Vancouver. And we need to have that conversation.
Why, as a society, are we producing so many people who are unwell?
I think we're broken. I think that, we are a 3-part person, the body, soul, and spirit. And, we can't treat the body without treating the spirit. And I think people are just walking around with broken hearts, trying to fill the holes in their heart, and they're self-medicating to get rid of emotional and physical pain.
How do you re-engage the faith community in the public policy decision about the spiritual answers that need to be part of a whole person?
We see between 100 and 150 people per night in an outreach program where we're connecting and building relationships and praying with people, and we're seeing people impacted and faith turning their lives around. So we know it works. We just need the opportunity to be able to share those experiences.
And include them in the part of healing. Marianne Connor, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lorna.
Well, now to our millennial point of view, and you heard me say it earlier, this is the first generation that believes chemical solutions give them a better life. So Sheldon, what do our millennials have to say on this?
Lorna, in my research, I found something very interesting, especially millennials coming from a faith background, that they feel that they don't have an open door to really share the struggles, share the addictions they may have, because they're in this kind of, how should I say, this box of faith that they can't show any weakness, that all is well. So it's a private struggle. And I found in the research that it is really growing among those communities, and just now it is starting to crack. And I got a question actually from a millennial, Lorna, and it says, if the government is really so concerned about this problem, why aren't they doing more to provide access to, watch this now, mental health services such as counseling, again, trying to find that out to cope, to preempt people seeking out opioids, again, that seeking, that trying to find an emotional release. It's an ongoing thing, and we're hoping that they'll be able to find that type of relief. Yes.
Sheldon, in that interview with Canada's Health Minister Jane Philpott, she said there are 500,000 Canadian young people under the age of 25 waiting for a mental health visit. That mental health visit needs to start face-to-face with your mom, with your dad, with your grandma, with your grandpa, with your church pastor, with anybody. But we've got to get each other talking to take care of each other, because you don't have time.
Well, I think part of what it takes is looking at stigma, people understanding that the way that we think about mental health and addiction in this country needs to change for some of us, because there's often a tendency for people to be very judgmental about people who are facing addiction. And you know, as I've said before, addiction has at its roots pain in people's lives. And nobody starts off in life hoping to grow up to develop addiction. It's something that happens usually because of circumstances well beyond a person's control. And we need to treat mental illness. We need to recognize it early in people's lives, to give people an opportunity for appropriate therapy to address the pain in their lives, whether it's physical or psychological. And I think when we all work together from that kind of a perspective as we look on mental health and addiction, I think that we can see some real change on this.
Minister, your portfolio has got a lot of heavy burdens in it. Is your faith being part of how you're managing this load?
Well, I think for all of us, our spiritual perspective affects how we look at the jobs that are put before us. And certainly, I'm thankful to have been raised in a Christian faith where I learned that one of my responsibilities is that to whom much is given, much is expected. I was taught that from a very young age, and I was taught to value every single human being and to spend every day of my life serving the people around me. So that's what I will continue to do. It's a tremendous honor to now have the opportunity to serve as Minister of Health, to have a positive impact on many people's lives, and I need to use that opportunity that I've been given to bring hope and health to Canadians.
Minister Jane Philpott, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Dreams do come true. PureFlix Canada is now available on a device near you. With over 3,500 faith and family titles, there is something for everyone. Start your free 1-month trial today at pureflixcanada.com.
What will a Trump presidency mean for Canada? Is media playing fair? Is fake media changing our minds? Join us next week.
I'll wrap things up with my take on a key question we hear from our audience. Which cause of the opioid crisis should we tackle? I'd say apathy. We are the first generation to believe the promise of better living through chemicals. Pain, whether it is emotional or physical, takes more than pills to fix. And at the root of all pain is hurt. And even when it's physical, pain takes life on life to heal. That's why the teachings of Jesus modeled activism, not apathy. Love shows up in personal conversations and acts of kindness, and every person in pain needs more of those experiences every week. You cannot replace those kinds of conversations with a text or a Facebook message. So make that your goal. Have you had a personal conversation with somebody who needs hope this week? An extended conversation. Have you had a personal conversation with somebody who builds into your life? The divine light of Christ's healing for our lives is always transmitted through people. So let's get out there and share it at every level of this nation's opioid crisis. For all of us, I'm Lorna Dueck.